Hello, welcome to Mod Midwives, a Metro Midwifery podcast. I'm Gina Gerbath.
And I'm Nedra Hale, and we are home birth midwives serving the Denver metro area.
Well, I always start with I hate when I do that. Oh well. We have, we have a pretty fun podcast planned for you today. We're planning on talking about labor and birth positions. So kind of something pragmatic, a pragmatic topic.
Definitely.
But we have had a lot of changes this week. So what's been going on with you at your house?
Well, there's that word again. We moved my dad in with us. So we spent the week moving my bedroom down into the basement so that he could live in my bedroom. And because that's just the most practical level. And we outfitted the bathroom so that he could use it, and cleared the path so that his walker could get through. And it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But it seems like I just finished organizing my office area down here today, kind of. I'm not totally done, but it's much improved. So that helps. I was feeling a little claustrophobic trying to, in my little corner, trying to get my work done. In the middle of all these boxes and debris.
I cannot work like that. I absolutely have to get it all squared away. I can't, my brain it won't allow me to think. Mm-hmm. I really like working at the office, or the opportunity to work at the office when things are chaotic at home, because I can't, if my head's not in the right space, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's too much. And then you got a new computer this week too.
I did. So, I've been procrastinating about getting a new laptop because my other one is kind of new, but it hasn't functioned well since I bought it. And then it met with a couple of accidents, which usually happens to my electronic devices.
I don't understand, because you seem really careful. You seem like a careful person to me.
I don't know what happens. I think it's just that there's a chaotic element happening, so sometimes something might get stepped on by one of the children. I just found out that one of my laptops that got its screen cracked years ago, that I had always blamed on one of my nephews. It turns out it was Finley that did it. She admitted it the other day.
She finally fessed up. What did she do?
She was just running around playing and she stepped on it. And maybe the lesson is I shouldn't leave my laptops on the floor. That could also be argued.
Could be a takeaway message from that. Well, we were joking because I was saying, you're like, well, the charging port in the old MacBook didn't work well. And I'm like, but I have actually seen it fall out of the back of your car before. So.
Yes. But the charging port was a separate incident. I think that was from living in Oregon. It corroded, I think, some moist air in it when it they wouldn't make the little connection anymore. So someday I'll take that down and get it fixed. But this was the impetus, though, is that Finley's starting a YouTube channel and she needs a laptop. And so I was like, you can have my crappy laptop and I will get a new one.
A new one. Yeah, good plan. Good plan. So now you're back in the land of sometimes I call myself an Apple whore, and I'm now going to have to hit explicit on this podcast because I just said that.
The word. Yes.
But I love Apple products so much. I will never go back. Never go back. Apple, you can certainly approach us about sponsoring this podcast now.
Yes, we will say your name as many times as you'd like.
Yes. By the way, it just occurred to me that we almost have a year under our belt, and we've never even really pursued the possibility of sponsorship or anything on our podcast. We've never even thought about it. I think we thought about it for 1 minute. We thought, well, maybe we should do that.
Someday in the distant future, we may be eligible,
but we never
for sponsorship.
So if you're some kind of birthy or natural parenting type product or something, hit us up, because we would love to consider, well-placed sponsors. Apple's probably ethically problematic, although Man, I'm just a sucker for Apple.
You just like cost us millions of dollars just with that one statement.
Oh man. I mean, they're going to be sad that they don't get to sponsor us for our 300 listeners. Anyway, my favorite thing about Apple products, which has nothing to do with our podcast topic today, is that I can put my AirPods in, which by the way, we bought other gaming a gaming headset for when we switched to Zoom. And these are better. The sound quality is better on the AirPods. Everything is better.
My headset isn't even working. I don't know. I think I must like have bad psychic energy that zaps everything that I touch because it's
maybe you're one of those like electrical people.
Maybe.
Because I feel like my MacBook, which was exactly like your last one with the corroded port, I used it for 6 years and then I gave it to Quinn and he's been using it for 2 years.
I have to replace my laptops so often, and it's not just from horrible accidents. It's just that they have like a 2-year shelf life with me. They just like die. They I don't know what happens to them. They get they bog, they just don't work well. And my last one, it was the battery. The battery is horrible.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
PC.
It was a PC. Snotty.
I know. Oh, that's what I was going to say. My favorite thing about Mac or Apple products is that I can put I have the Apple Watch with the cellular, and then I can connect my AirPods to the Apple Watch, and then I can go for a run without carrying my phone with me. I can take phone calls, so I can be on call and do that and not have my phone with me. And for anybody who doesn't understand what it's like to live life on call, your phone has to be with you all the time. And this is my 3-mile release from my leash if I want it. So it's awesome.
That's my next thing is I need to try out the Apple Watch and see if it gives me a rash.
Oh yeah, if anybody has a spare Apple Watch for Nedra to try.
It doesn't have to be functional. I just need to wear it. No,
she just wants to see if she gets that rash from the thing. So
yeah, because I'd like to do my gardening and stuff without having to figure out where I left my phone because I stuck it on a log or something while I was gardening. So I need to
I suggested yesterday that the laboring person put on her Apple Watch and set it to another workout so we could see how many calories she burnt in labor. She laughed, but she didn't do it. But I would be super down
I would
with
totally
that.
Do that.
I know. I would love to know how many calories I burned in labor. She didn't do it. She didn't go
I could like get a late in life baby going here and I could try that experiment.
Well, that's something else we could hit up for you on the podcast that it doesn't seem appropriate. No. Maybe not.
No, probably not.
Okay, so today our topic is actually, I guess I say actually a lot too. Whenever I listen to the podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, I say these things so many times. Anyway, we're going to talk about labor and birth positions, and this was instigated by an Instagram post that we did this week where we posted a picture from one of our births back in December. And we got lots of conversation on it, more on Facebook than on Instagram. Instagram's interesting. I don't think it elicits the same kind of conversation as Facebook does. I think I'm just never going to totally make the switch. So,
no,
and I don't understand how
the same way.
And how does Twitter conversation even work? I've tried to reply to things, but it's weird because it's in your feed.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah. So your replies show up as tweets in your feed, but it's on a thread under the original tweet.
And so you can go, so if I'm looking at your thread and you've replied to somebody, I can click through.
Right. If you click on my reply.
Privacy settings or is it just that Twitter's just considered out there for anybody who's?
I think there are privacy settings, but I don't know. I haven't really messed with it that much. But yeah, it is not the same. I mean, it is definitely not the same as using Instagram or Facebook. I mean, it's everybody can see if you've done a hashtag, if you don't have it set so that people can't see you, everybody's going to see it.
I mean, I feel like that's why I use it as a customer service weapon, which is what I do use Twitter for. Because I feel like it's the only way to get these companies to pay attention to you sometimes. Like sometimes they don't even have I'm not kidding you. Delta, when I was trying to figure out the change ticket process.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have customer service on their website. They have
Oh,
they have like, FAQs. Do you say FAQ or do you say FAQ?
say FAQ.
Me too.
FAQ.
I do. So they have FAQs, and then they actually say, or tweet us at deltaair.com or delta whatever the heck.
Really? Oh
It's
my gosh.
total crap. It's total crap. Anyway, so I'll tweet. You want me to tweet? I'll tweet what I think.
Did they respond?
No. But
Oh,
Spirit Air
snap.
did when I complained about their customer service. Spirit Air
Yeah.
did give me a credit. So did Grease Monkey reply to you?
No, it's I mean, they don't have a very well thought out social media structure, so I don't know if it was the best approach with them.
It brings
So
up an interesting topic, actually. Maybe we should table it for another podcast. But, I don't really believe in destroying companies online. I don't really believe in destroying people's businesses and, going for the jugular. It's been done to me. It's super hurtful.
yeah.
I don't like it. It's not how I like to do things, but they kind of back you up against a wall. They make it hard to get a response otherwise. And so
They
I
do.
don't know. Anyway.
I mean, I was complaining about my experience with having to set up my own cable and internet this week, and it was impossible to get a live person on the phone. Like, it was so terrible.
That whole thing about how they sent you a kit and there was like not even a person involved anywhere.
Because of COVID, but the thing that was the worst, I could understand that, although it's way outside my skill set, let me just say. But the thing that was awful is that I'm calling and I'm talking to their automated system, and no matter what I say, they will not allow me to speak to a person. And I think to myself, what on earth does a disabled elderly person do? How can they navigate this? Like, how can they hook up their own cable?
And that's the whole reason you're hooking up cable. You didn't even want cable.
I didn't even want cable. It was for my dad. Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, they can't navigate this stupid system. And the only way I could talk to a person was via texting. And they can't do, my dad could not do that. Like, it is really unfair. It is not okay that you can't talk to a person.
I agree. Mm-hmm. It's terrible. Well, I was going to say one other thing. So the picture of the labor position so you can go to Instagram. Oh, yeah. I think I posted it on Thursday or Friday this week. So July, I don't even know what today is. Today's the 26th, 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, somewhere like that. You can go find the picture that I'm talking about. It's a birthing person in a sideline position. Anyway, I was going to say, when you talked about how you're a little hard on things at your house, I was going to tie this picture into you being hard on things. And I was going to say, well, at least you've never dropped a baby. And then I remembered I almost dropped that baby.
Oh, I'm going to knock on some wood right now. You better knock on some wood.
I know. Well, I almost dropped that baby.
But knock on some wood that you said that about me. Do it right now.
Oh, okay.
You have a table. Okay, good.
You hear that? I'm gonna get the dogs going crazy here in a minute. Yeah, at that birth, the baby was in a towel. Like, it was not the delivery, but the baby was wrapped up in a towel, and I went to pick the baby up, and there was so much towel at the bottom of the baby that I thought I was grabbing onto the baby, but I was grabbing onto the towel, and he kind of slipped. That's the closest thing I've ever been to dropping a baby. That was horrible. So if you're the mother, so sorry that I almost dropped your baby, which I know you saw.
I have heard stories about that, and it is, I mean, midwives have really sure hands, but you always have to be mindful of, like, when you're delivering in a standing position or something, that like, babies
they are
really slippery.
Yeah. Super slippery. And we talk about that when we talk about what to do if the baby's coming faster than us, and we give the partner a lot of instructions about how not to drop the baby, or how to be in a position that it doesn't matter if you do drop the baby. But anyway, so that person is awesome. She has shared so many of her birth photos with us for our Facebook, and that picture is really great, because the picture that we posted last week is really great because it shows this really awesome side-lying position. And I actually didn't look up her chart, but I believe she didn't have any tearing, and It's just a really good, it's a physiologic position, I guess you would say.
Mhm.
So I thought we could maybe talk about some of our favorite positions for labor and delivery, and then ones that we don't like as much, and just
Yeah,
kind of go through. But let's start with
great.
labor, because positions for labor are significantly different than positions for actually birthing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about laboring positions first. So,
Hmm.
um, and I think I would preface this by saying we're talking really about active labor, because one
Right.
thing that people do when they're excited about early labor is they try to do all the things, all the gravity positions and all the active laboring positions in early labor. And mostly we just believe in ignoring early labor as long as you
Mhm.
can and not doing anything special, because you're not going to make early labor go faster by being active.
Yeah, go about your normal day as if nothing was happening, and hopefully
Yeah.
at some point something will kick in.
Yeah. So we're talking about active labor and pushing.
Okay.
So active labor, favorite positions.
Oh goodness. I mean, lots of them, but I mean, you know that I love it if people are resting, that they rest on their left side to get, optimum circulation of the oxytocin and all of that. But all the upright positions, just like leaning over something, rocking the hips, leaning over the birth ball, doing some lunges,
So
all
regarding
that stuff
left
is
side
great.
lying, do you feel the same way if the baby's in an ROA position? If that baby is just committed to being on the right, do you feel the same way about them lying on their left side?
Yes, only because I think it's just better for circulation. But in those cases, I might do like the flipping back and forth thing
Mm-hmm.
and I might do that anyway, just because,
You get
why
achy in
not?
one position too long
Yeah,
too. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And it
And
depends on what we're trying to
moving,
accomplish.
I think Ina May says move the mom, move the baby. So just changing
Yeah,
positions itself is a good
right,
activity.
right. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So forward leaning, like leaning,
Hmm.
like dancing position, so the slow dancing position, or leaning on a
Yeah,
counter, those kind of things.
yeah. So I really love the active positions. I mean, so resting is important too, but I think active positions are really nice.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I like asymmetric positions a lot for labor. I think it makes a little more space in the pelvis. So things where they like are doing stairs, but they kind of lunge, like they'll put one leg up and lunge through a contraction,
Mm,
then go up a couple more stairs and do the other leg up and lunge through a
that's
contraction.
great.
I recently just kind of curb walking sort of just appeared on my radar lately, which is where you're think about walking in the street on the sidewalk, but one foot is on the street, one foot is up on the curb, so that you're asymmetric. So one
Oh,
leg is higher than the other.
and
I'm sure it's awkward.
how long do you keep going on one leg like that? Like,
A while,
how
probably a
interesting.
block or two. I don't know. Maybe you
Wow.
walk down the block one way and then walk up the other side of the street the other way. I don't know. There's probably, I'm sure there's guidelines somewhere.
I
I'm
don't
sure
think
that
I've
people
tried that.
will. It's good for when you're trying to rotate the baby, or when you're trying to get the baby to descend. So if you've got kind of a high baby in early labor.
Mhm.
Um, so high babies in early labor are not really such a big deal with multips, people who have already had a baby, particularly vaginally, but they're a little bigger of a deal with primates if it's your first baby. We like to see a well-engaged baby before labor even starts. And so if that hasn't happened, and it's not always a deal breaker if it isn't,
Right.
but we feel a lot better about the potential course of labor if the baby is engaged before labor. So early in labor, doing things like that to kind of help the baby engage is something to try.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Um, what about hands and knees in labor?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think of it more as, well, it depends on how they're doing it, but I think of it more as a resting position most of the time, because a lot of people do it in like a knee chest way, and
Mm-hmm,
you're not really getting much pressure on the cervix that way.
mm-hmm,
So it's, unless we're trying to reposition the baby, which that's really great for, I'm not
mm-hmm,
sure how great it is for progress necessarily.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I remember that in my second labor, which was my first home birth.
Hmm.
My midwife said, oh, I got into knee chest. I just like naturally adopted that knee chest position. I'm like,
Because
oh,
it
that's
feels really
so
nice.
much better.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, that's because now the baby's head isn't on your cervix. I was
Yeah.
like, shoot. So she was nice about it, but they made me get up soon.
While we're on that topic, we should talk about toilet sitting.
Oh, yes. The torture of the
Everyone's
toilet.
favorite. Yeah, I know.
Toilet sitting is so great. Why do you think it's so good?
Well, I mean, just because you get the pelvis nice and open and get the pressure of the head on the cervix, but woo, it's intense. It works
I
really
think
well
it's
though.
also good because you know what to do with your pelvic floor on the toilet. I think when you sit on the
Oh,
toilet, you relax those muscles differently than you do when you're holding
that's
your body
good.
upright. I think
Yeah.
it's part of why it works so well.
Yeah.
It's my hypothesis. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I think it makes
Put my
sense.
hair up. And also sitting backwards on the toilet is a popular position. So instead of just sitting on the toilet, turning around, you can get pillows on the back and then like pile them up.
Just so you have better support that way.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It becomes a
Oh,
forward leaning.
people can access your back. Oh, just like my hands.
Yeah, I liked it. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I think we've already talked about it, that the CPR song is now Another One Bites the Dust, not Staying Alive.
Oh yeah, we did.
You were supposed to slow it down. Boom, boom, boom. Another one bites the dust. Whereas do, 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 Staying Alive, it's a little faster. Anyway.
Oh, I was wondering why. I was like, why did we have to change it?
It slows it down. Slows it down. Just, I mean, Staying Alive certainly is better affirmations for not dying.
Yes. I agree.
Visualization of what you want to happen in that moment. Actually, CPR, I learned in my little digression here, I learned in my EMT class, CPR is very ineffective. It's very unlikely you're going to save anyone with CPR. You need to get the AED on them as soon as possible because most heart attacks are electrical early on. So yeah. So everybody start checking out.
Is it good for perfusion of the organs for an organ transplant?
Yes. 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 So keep
also,
doing
CPR works better on pediatric victims also than it does on adult victims.
So I actually, of all, of course we have neonatal resuscitation and adult resuscitation. I'm not pediatric certified, so the PALS or whatever. But at least for neonatal, most resuscitative efforts are respiratory. So
right.
So it's
right, but that's true for pediatric. Like we're talking about drowning and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's more about getting the respirations going again, whereas it's almost not important in adults. But yeah, you're right about that. Perfuse those organs so that they can be donated. Anyway.
Careful.
Anywho. Yeah, toilet sitting is a really good one. We also both carry birth stools, which can be like toilet sitting without being on the toilet. If you have a one bathroom house, we might suggest bringing in the birth stool so that we can keep a bathroom clear.
Oh, one bathroom houses for home births. It's such a challenge.
I mean, I had a castor oil birth in a one bathroom house for my third birth, and I totally monopolized the bathroom. I don't know what they did. They probably drove to Julie's house. I didn't even know it. Probably just like, because we were in a small town.
We have essentially a one bathroom house now because the one upstairs is now outfitted for Dad, so it's not really comfortable for anybody else to use it. So here we are, five people using one bathroom.
Oh, really? Finley's not using the upstairs bathroom?
I mean, it's just too tall now. We had to make it really tall with the handles and everything. So
what does that mean?
It's got you put like a seat attachment that's like this tall, and then it has the handles so that he doesn't have to sit down all the way.
Yeah.
So then it makes it, I mean, like it can be used, but it makes it really challenging for anybody else to use it.
Oh,
It's not, speaking of optimal
squatty
positions
squatty
for,
potty. It's not
yes,
squatty potty
it is
approved.
the opposite of the squatty potty. It is the standy potty.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Boy, you really did do a lot this week. Jeez. Okay. So I am going to place an unpopular opinion out there.
Okay.
And say that sometimes lying on your back is a good position.
Yes.
It's like a midwife sacrilege.
Are we talking about first stage or second stage?
Even first.
Really? Tell me about that.
I think when you have a pendulous abdomen, if you've had a lot of babies, if you are having a hard time with the laxity of the abdominal muscles and the baby's tipping forward out of the pelvis, I've seen so many times if they just lay down on their semi-reclined, maybe not fully, supine, but
so it's like it's like a belly lift, but you're laying down.
It tips yeah.
That's nice.
Unpopular opinion, not for everyone, definitely not for first-time moms. But it is a good position for a lot of people.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Sorry. There's a lot of activity around the house these days.
I know.
I thought it would be quiet here today, but anyway. So let's actually use that as our segue into pushing position. So,
okay.
In general, we also still really like upright positions for pushing.
Yes, definitely.
What are some of your favorites?
I like hands and knees for pushing for sure. And I like side lying. That's not an upright position, but I do like that. I think it's a great position. Sometimes laying flat on your back is a great position for pushing if you're trying to get a baby under that pubic bone. Standing is nice. Leaning over something is nice. There's lots of positions.
Yeah. I in general, so when the side lying position post came up, we mentioned that it's a really great position for support of the perineum. It's a really great position for resting between contractions. And somebody mentioned in another, in a conversation post that she ended up, 50% of the time she ended up on hands and knees to push her baby out. And I'm going to say, I think that hands and knees is the most intuitive position for pushing. Like it's the instinctual, it's the position that I think that people are more likely to adopt if they are just totally left alone. What do you think about that?
I think that might be true. At one of my recent births, though, the person was so, you never know what you want in the moment, right? But she was so wanting to push on hands and knees. And we ended up on the side for, just like, that's just what was working to bring the baby down. And I kept saying, okay, you want to switch, you want to flip over now? You want to flip over now? And she's like, no, I'm not doing it.
Okay.
So we ended up not getting on hands and knees. I mentioned it, I think 3 times, and then it was clear that she wanted me to not say it again. Thank you very much. So, people like birth stools sometimes too, but I'm not a fan of birth stools for crowning the head out. But
yeah,
I remember one of my own births, this was for my third one. So my first one was on my side. My second baby was also on my side. Actually, all my babies ended up being on the side.
All of them.
Yes. But the second one was humongous, and he had this giant head, which I've talked about, like 15.5-inch head. And I just was so focused with the third one, like I must have a birth stool because like it'll be easier. And then I hated it when I sat on it. I was like, this is terrible. I'm not doing this, So then I ended up on my side again. But some people like it, it's a nice option.
I definitely prefer the birth stool for my clients in first stage, so before we're pushing. I like it in second stage, but not for, like you said, not for crowning the baby out. I like it for bringing the baby down, pushing the baby to the perineum, and then it would be my preference to have them off. I'm positive I see more tearing on the birth stool.
Oh yeah.
That being said, I delivered my second on the birth stool, and it was a love-hate relationship. So I had a premature urge to push because I had a super bulgy bag of water that I like finally just begged them to break, and then I had my baby and I was on the birth stool when that all happened. But I felt like the birth stool did give me this like pressure that I need, and now I realize it's just because I was just pushing on this bag of water and not the actual baby.
Right.
So, but it gave me this pressure that made me it made me feel more effective, I guess, on the birth stool.
Yeah.
But I do not like it for a baby coming out either. Also, it's very awkward to move the birthing person right after the birth, and I don't want them sitting on. I certainly don't want a placenta on the birth stool, let alone the separation gush or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we don't want any.
So too.
We don't want any.
I know.
Loud.
I just texted my son to say that they needed to not play their games so boisterously. I hope you guys can't hear.
I can't hear yours, but I can tell you can hear mine. And this is just me and my most adult child in the house at the moment. And even still, it's not peaceful. Anyway, birth stool is a love-hate relationship. I really like to have it, though. I like to have it for people that want gravity. And
yes,
if they are going to deliver in that position, I'd rather it be on the birth stool than the toilet. That is most.
It's so hard.
Not where I want to have a baby is on the toilet.
It's just like the access is so difficult.
Yeah.
And then it's usually like in a closet, so you're like,
it's awful.
Stuck in there, and it's hard to move.
There's no room. Yeah. You've got to get them to stand part way up to get the baby out. Like, no.
Yeah. Birth stool much better than the toilet.
Yeah. That's still not ideal. So back to the pendulous abdomen and the lying kind of on your back. It definitely helps get that baby under the pubic bone if the baby's tipped outside of the pelvis at all. So I don't know if you can kind of visualize, here, this is the pelvis. If you've got the baby, if you're on Zoom, if the baby's out here, getting, flat helps bring the baby back so that they can come under the pelvis. I really think it works. Again, it's not something that we see nobody says, hey, I'd really like to have a home birth so I can deliver flat on my back. Because it feels like a disconnect. But sometimes it can be an effective position. And you just have to go with what's working. You just try different things and see what's working and what's not working.
And that's what those ones that end up delivering on the back, we've probably been pushing for a couple of hours and trying all of the positions, and sometimes it's just the one that the baby is able to scoot under the bone. It works really well for that.
Yep. And while we try not to be extremely hands-on, sometimes we do have to be hands-on. There was just a birth. I just did a birth that the baby's heart tones were dipping down a little bit low, and we needed to facilitate delivery a little bit. And sometimes that means we need to do things that are a little more
directed pushing, and let's get this baby out on the outside where we're going to be happier.
And other births we do without hardly saying a word or offering any suggestions, or so it really just depends on what you need in the moment and in that particular situation. So it's not there's no rules here. It's just about following your body, following the situation, and just adapting to what we need to adapt to. I would say side lying. I wondered if it's your Bradley background that led you to adopt a side lying position every time.
Probably, at least with the first one, I'm certain of it because
this is how you should do it.
I know I had trained myself to be. I know I've told this story before, and I'm totally not bashing Bradley, but I had it in my mind that this is how you're supposed to do it. And I like to do stuff the way that it's supposed to be done. Yes, because I am a pleaser, and so I was on my left side. I was making no noise, which I think is complete bull. Like just so the
You can
rest of
just
you.
say bullshit because I already have to check explicit on this podcast anyway. So you can just say it.
It's just like, people, I mean, just hear it from my heart. Just make whatever noise you want to make, because like you feel, at least I did, I felt like kind of trapped in my head that I couldn't make any noise because I was supposed to be all like
Yeah.
peaceful and
Yeah.
relaxed and stuff. But so I ended up not feeling relaxed, but I was outwardly relaxed, and did get the gratification of having everyone praise me for my relaxation.
Which is
Meanwhile,
unfortunate, actually, because then that is just further ingrained into your psyche.
I
It's the
know,
right way
because
to
you're
do
like
it.
primal. So I'm like, great, I'm being praised for hiding my true, state here.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it ended up being a great position to push in because, of course, I labored all the way through the night and pushed her out between 3:30 and 5:30 in the morning. And so, because it's a long second stage, and pushing on my side was great because I could sleep in between. I would just push and then I would be like and go to sleep and wake up and push again. So it was lovely for that. And then I think it's just what I think it's just what I do now. Like I just go back to, that's how I push my babies out. I
I don't even think I labored inside lying at all. I think
Yeah.
my first birth, I had an epidural. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure that they did the wedge under one side because I did have that hypotensive episode. So I'm sure
right.
that they did that, but I don't think I was fully on my side. He was definitely born in a, straight up lithotomy, hospital epidural birth situation. My third, I adopted a lithotomy, or it was more reclined than semi-reclined, maybe not quite lithotomy, but I just totally crawled up on the bed and I got myself on my, kind of on my back, but also kind of cattywampus. Like I wasn't really straight. I wasn't square. And I remember it still. And my midwife was like, "Are you comfortable?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Okay, well, we'll move you after this next contraction." And then I had the baby on the next contraction.
Oh.
But I just took this position and then I just started pushing. But no, I didn't even really labor. I mean, I don't think you could talk like just cockeyed as side lying. I wasn't ever on my side enough to call it side lying, I don't think. But I do think I maybe wanted to be off my flat back a little bit. And then the birth stool, which was horrendous, but it got the job done.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it's probably, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, what about squatting? We didn't talk about squatting. That's like quintessential.
I mean, yeah. Squatting is great for bringing the baby down for sure. I'm not a fan of it for crowning the head out because of the pressure it puts on the perineum. But there are certainly many, many midwives that would disagree with me on that opinion. So, but that's what I think.
Yeah. We had somebody about a year ago who had torn with her first birth, and then we talked about all the positions we were going to do, all the pushing positions to protect the perineum. She had a big tear with her first birth, which I was her midwife with the first birth, but it just was what it was. And then we talked about all these like nice protective positions, and then she went really, really fast, and she birthed her baby a couple minutes before you got there. You were closer. And she just intuitively adopted a squat. And I mean, I don't see that many people squatting while they're pushing. It's hard.
It is hard to squat.
It's hard to squat. It takes a lot of energy to keep yourself while you're pushing. And she pushed her baby out in a squat. And she didn't care.
No, it's actually really compelling because I would never have chosen that for that particular,
we would have gotten side lying all the way with her.
So because maybe there's something to it.
And her tear had been anterior with her. Well, she tore both directions, but with her first baby, she had an anterior tear. And I think hands and knees, I think I see an increase in labial tears in hands and knees. Do you think you see that?
I don't know. I'm going to have to pay attention to that.
I feel like it could be anecdotal in my head, but the thing about hands and knees is everything is backwards.
I know.
And it does give us really good access to protect the perineum, but it is a little
The
more
flexion of the head
awkward.
is a little different.
Mhm. It
That's like
actually
I'll pay
changes.
attention.
It changes the flexion of the head. Hands and knees actually changes the way the head comes out. But it must be pretty physiological because I just really think most people end up in that position if you leave them alone.
Well, don't you think most people are kind of doing a kind of like a variation on a squat in a hands and knees position? Like I mean, it's not a squat, but they're like putting their hips down in
A froggy hands and knees.
froggy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah.
don't know what that's called. I call it a froggy position, but
I
yeah.
don't know what it's called either, but they're
Like,
getting
mhm.
their hips down there.
Yes. I absolutely think that. In fact, sometimes we have to ask them to lift their bottom up a little bit to
Yes,
make a
because
little
I'm
bit of
like,
room. Yeah. Oh, good visual, good visual. You've
yes.
also got it YouTube. I don't know how many minutes in this is, but go check it out on YouTube. Yeah, you're right. It's not straight up hands and knees most of the time. They scooch their bottom back. So I've been reading interesting studies on which we don't do breech at home, but I've been reading a lot of studies on delivering breech vaginally. And there's a lot of compelling information about doing it hands and knees. And one of the things you do is that you get the baby up to the umbilicus in hands and knees, like straight on hands and knees. And then you have the birthing person go to a knee chest position and it makes the head flex.
Oh.
Yeah, because the head flexion is really important in a breech birth.
Yeah, right.
So it
Interesting.
flexes the head at just the right time. Super compelling. It's like a case study and then some other things I've seen. So yeah. So there's something about hands and knees that changes the way that really how the whole physiology of the birth is kind of a little different.
Yeah.
It's also sometimes I have a hard time with hands and knees, like with checking. If somebody's got a little lip or something, I think it's kind of hard in hands and knees. Sometimes that ends up that the lip is so it's kind of hidden. I've had a couple times where they're pushing in hands and knees and there's a lip and I didn't realize it. So, you kind of have to watch it and just, if anything's not going like absolutely swimmingly, you need to kind of assess what's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah. I think that, there's never a right or wrong. And I think that people sometimes, this kind of circles back to your Bradley ways, but I think that sometimes people come to the table with some really preconceived ideas, and some of the childbirth instruction is very prescriptive. And I think you should let go of those because I think it is very primal, very intuitive, and you should just go with what feels good or what the situation is calling for in the moment. And sometimes it's your physical environment too. Like sometimes you have this idea that you're going to be leaning over something and then you don't have anything in your bedroom to lean over and you thought you'd use your kitchen counter, but you didn't like to be in the kitchen, or, there can be those kind of things, or, anything like that can interrupt your flow of what's working or what's not working for you.
For sure.
So let go of all preconceived ideas. We very rarely say, okay, let's get into this position unless there's a problem. That would be the only time we would say, I need you to do X, Y, or Z. It would be if there was a concern or a problem or a safety issue. We might suggest position changes because doing anything in the same position for too long, whether it's labor or pushing, it's counterproductive to keep doing the same thing. It's really productive to move around and try different things.
I got some good feedback recently from one of my births where the person said that it was nice to get little prescribed instructions. So like 30 minutes, like I gave it to her in 30-minute increments, which is what we usually do, right? Try 30 minutes, 30 minutes on the toilet, 30 minutes in the shower. And the feedback I got was that she really liked that because it was like a manageable goal that I have to do this part for 30 minutes,
focus on for 30 minutes. Yeah. I actually have found that's another interesting thing of your expectations versus your reality. And the expectations that people have is that they just want to be left alone. that they want to do what they want to do.
Right.
And that may very well be true for some people. But my experience is that most people want a little direction.
Yeah.
Because,
just something to,
yeah,
direction
not,
is a good
again,
word.
not saying you have to do this, I need you in this position, but just saying, let's try this for a while. You've been upright for a while. Let's try lying on your side for a while. Like, let's shift it around and mix it up. And, because you feel alone in your body. Sometimes you don't even know how to ask for help. And so to have somebody kind of say, let's try this for a while, feels very guided and reassuring for some people.
Yeah. That's exactly what she said, is that it was like, it took this like, perception of eternity, with this thing going on, and it broke
like, I'm never going to be done with it. Because it feels like that in the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what you could expect from us as your midwives. Every midwife has a different approach, but we'll gently offer suggestions. Unless everything is just totally working and it looks like it would be a hindrance to suggest something else.
And sometimes it's like that. Sometimes
I just had the
totally perfect, just like it is.
Completely hands-off birth last month, where I got there and it was just the parents, and the dad was just quietly sitting next to her, not really even doing much, just sitting with her. And my son wants to be on the podcast. Oh, Quinn. You can come poke your head in real quick. All right. The podcast with a guest appearance by Quinn, who never wants to do anything.
I've never been on a podcast before. This is
Anyway, the dad was just sitting quietly with the mom, and oh my gosh, she's gone now. And was not even touching her, but it wasn't in an ignoring kind of way. It was just a quiet presence. And I did the things I needed to do. I listened to the baby. I didn't get her blood pressure because she was clearly working really hard, and I didn't want to interrupt her out of that. And we've never had a concern with her blood pressure. So I waited because I knew delivery was imminent. But I did listen to the baby, and the baby sounded great. And then we just quietly sat up. I mean, we almost didn't say a thing. And then she was hands and knees, on her knees, leaning onto the couch, actually, in the living room. So we could see right where she was when we walked in the door. And I could see her back moving. And I can't exactly describe what it was, but I could see that her body was pushing without her pushing. And I could see her back muscles moving. And I was like, we're just going to have a baby. Like, she wasn't pushing, but her body was, the baby was being ejected. The fetal ejection reflex.
That's how everybody says it's going to be, right?
It was exactly like that. It was exactly like that. And I didn't give her any guidance. She was not checked one time. I think we got one heart tone before the baby came out, which was, 10 minutes after we arrived. I mean, the baby came out 10 minutes after we arrived. And she didn't, and she felt supported in the end. I think the risk of that birth is that you can be screaming inside your body even if you're completely silent outside.
Exactly.
And she didn't need help. And we look for those cues. We look for people touching their back and, like holding their back like this hurts, or like kind of being unsettled in their skin. And
or like, like clenched
like shoulders up and brow furrowed. And it wasn't like that at all. It was just sometimes that does happen. And I know that's not how her previous deliveries went, her previous births went, because I remember her saying she felt out of control, like she felt that internal out of control before. So we just read the situation, and we just do what needs to be done. And it can be any number of approaches, and it just depends. And we're totally willing to take guidance. It's just that usually in that moment it's hard for people to give us guidance too.
Right. Yeah. It's just vocalizing what you're feeling is like so challenging.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I think we covered most of it. Can you think of anything we're missing?
We didn't really talk about standing up for pushing. I don't think.
We didn't.
Did we? I mean, we touched on it a couple of times.
We talked about it in first stage. Yeah, you said you like it a lot of standing positions for first stage.
Yeah. So
I
standing for
don't.
pushing is something people do. It's not my favorite just because we're so high off the ground. And we were talking about babies being slippery. And again, midwives have really sure hands, you know, but
Yeah.
it always is on my mind, like, you know, being extra, 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 extra careful when we're that high off the ground. And you
I
know,
just feel like I've only done, boy, in all the births I've been to, I think less than 10 have been standing. I don't think it's extremely intuitive. I don't think your legs
I don't think so
feel
either.
sure most of the time.
Yeah.
So it doesn't happen that often. I will say that we discourage it if you need a lot of perineal support. It's very difficult to support your perineum. So if you've had a bad tear before, if, you know, I would say
Yeah.
it's not the best position for that, although it is really physiologic. It is, you know, in terms of gravity.
Right, right. I think that my observation is that most people will adopt a kneeling position if they're standing. Like, and
Yeah, they
kneeling's
just
good
end up.
too. Like kneeling and like leaning against the bed or
Yeah,
something is
I
really
think for
nice.
whatever reason, I put that all into hands and knees, but you're right. It's really kneeling with
Yeah,
supported kneeling
yeah,
maybe would be.
yeah,
And I think it goes into that same, they kind of do that same froggy where the bottom comes back
yes,
a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
And I also want to say all of these positions are possibilities in the water except for standing. And sometimes the water gives you a little added help. So for example, squatting outside of the water is really hard. Squatting in the water often feels a lot more comfortable.
that's true.
So
And
sometimes,
oddly enough, some of my standing deliveries have been because they've been in the water and then
and then
we've
they
had to
stood
get
up.
out. You know, because you know
You're
things can
transitioning.
be
Yeah.
things can be awkward in the water, and so you know if we've got like a sticky shoulder or something, you know, and then
Yeah.
so a lot of them have happened like as the leg is coming over the
Yes.
side of
Yep.
the top.
Asymmetrical.
Yep.
Asymmetrical. I had one like that, a first time birthing person, and she just wasn't making, like the baby was crowned out for a little while in the water, and then we decided to get out. It wasn't sticky shoulders, but it was kind of a long crown.
Mhm.
And as soon as she stood up and put that leg, the head popped out. I know.
No popping.
Popped out. It popped out. It was not a good tear. It was not ideal.
Oh
It wasn't third degree, but
no.
it was a
Bummer.
significant tear because we weren't expecting that. I mean, it
Yeah.
was that change in position that really did it. And I
Yeah.
think it's
Yeah.
getting that one leg up that
Hmm.
makes all that space for the head to come out.
Definitely. Yeah.
So yeah, we have some we have some not so ideal positions for sure,
Hmm. Yeah.
but sometimes it's just the way it is.
Right.
And we're very unlikely to restrict anything. The only thing we would restrict is if heart tones didn't sound good, if the baby's heart rate didn't sound good in a certain position, which sometimes it does. Like there's just a little pinchy cord in a certain position,
Right. For sure.
and that would be the only reason, unless we were seeing some other complication. But that's the only can you think of another reason why we might be where we're like, no, let's not do that?
I mean, if we have been getting better progress in a certain position and we're pushing on, you know, if we're pushing for hours and we're, you know,
Yeah,
I think definitely some direction to a position that's going to get the baby out.
yeah, sure, but
Yeah.
not so much a no. Like I was
Right.
just trying to think, we don't restrict you unless there's
Yeah.
cause. But
Right.
you're
Right.
right, we would encourage you to push in the most effective positions if time has been elapsing.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully you garnered a little bit of insight about things. And I'm sure that I bet everybody that listens to this that has had a baby before will have somebody will be like, no, I totally disagree. That was the best position for me. And somebody else will be like, oh, I hated that position. And that's just totally true. Just like whatever
Yes.
feels right in that moment is what you should do.
Right. Right.
So yeah. Well, I guess that's it. Thanks for accommodating my guest co-star, my guest speaker. Oh, I was gonna say, I know we don't plug non-birthy podcasts very often on this, but I have been listening this week. I have been super into the Fake Doctors, Real Friends podcast, which is it's the Scrubs podcast, and it's Zach Braff and Donald Faison, and they go through each Scrubs episode, and it's so fun, and it's given me such a good like insight about like what works in a podcast and what doesn't work in a podcast, and it just, I don't know, I think it's the two people talking, and then they have guest interviewees sometimes, and it's really fun. It's a great podcast.
I need to listen to it.
Did you watch Scrubs from beginning to
yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I didn't watch the last. I don't think I watched the last season.
The last season was, forget it. Pretend there wasn't the last season.
Okay.
It was all good up until the last season.
Oh,
okay. It was horrible. It's
I
so funny how we have
rewatch the whole thing though. If I'm gonna listen to this,
you're supposed to. You watch an episode and then you listen to the podcast because they walk you through each episode.
Oh.
So you go with it. It's really fun. It's really fun. Yeah. Highly recommended. 4 stars. Do recommend. Anyway. Yes. We're learning our podcast lessons as we go, but I think that it's fun to get to just have a conversation with your friend. And so that's kind of what reminded me of that. So thanks for being my friend. I won't sing. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Donald Faison sings all the time on it, like me.
Oh, how sweet.
So I will not end with thank you for being a friend, but thanks.
I love that song though.
I know. Oh, it's so tempting. No, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. Okay. All right. We're going to go. Follow us on social at Metro Midwifery and have a great week. Bye.
Bye.
Oops.
Oh,
I have to edit this out. I have to edit this out.
Did you not stop?